Damn.
What are we gonna do about this mess? If you've been following along with California's implosion, you're aware of the disaster happening right before our eyes. For the first time in the state's history, California had a population decline. It's getting more lawless here. There's a lot of bonehead decisions being made in Sacramento. Add in the high cost of living, and tens of thousands of sensible families have had enough. But there's a lot of new people moving here too. Many of them are here on California's streets. In this video, I'm going to show every homeless person and tent I saw while on my month-long road trip through California. The total number of tents and homeless people I saw was 702. I counted them, shot by shot. Of course, it's easy to judge. The first instinct is to wonder what tragedy befell these people. Most of the folks you'll see in public like this suffer from mental illness, substance abuse, or have just decided to check out of life for now. I'm just going to do this now. California laws make that a lot easier than it should be. But remember, all these people have friends and family who care about them and are worried. And every person out here has a story. According to the latest numbers, every day in America, 208 people get out of homelessness. That's great. But 228 people become homeless every day. That's not good. They think there's 500,000 homeless people now, but you could easily double that. And when you see how embedded many of the people are on California streets, I don't think the problem's going to get any better. They think 1 out of 3 people sleeping on the streets in America is right here in California. Housing costs continue to go up, and there just aren't enough places for all these people to live. Here in California, there's 23 affordable housing options for every 100 people who need them. And this is the 4th largest economy in the world. Remember that. You could make an argument that this is a liberal thing, and it's a good argument too. A lot of our most liberal cities have the most people on the streets. They let them poop and steal and camp wherever they want. They hand out drugs and then hand out Narcan in the next building down the street. My God. Democrats market themselves as the party of the poor. So keeping people poor is the best way to remain in office. And when you're a sanctuary state, who do you think's going to come? That's the argument conservatives make, anyways. Here in California, all the regulations and red tape make building new units unprofitable. There's rent control here, so nobody with any cash wants to build anything cheap. And saying that you have to have solar panels on every new building slows down affordable housing momentum. Everything's environmental here. That sucks. Austin, Texas has made camping in public illegal. Tennessee did the same thing. And Portland is actually saying they're going to start enforcing public camping like this. I know, right? Portland, Oregon. But here in California, it's against state law to move people off the sidewalks unless they have enough shelter beds to put people in. And there's not even close to enough shelter beds in California for all these people. No way. But voters have had enough. They're sick of the gross streets, the crime, and the open drug use. They put out an official poll, and guess what? Homelessness was the #1 thing California people are pissed off about. Imagine that. Good luck getting a conservative in office with a different approach, though. Not in California. Nuh-uh. Is this a public policy thing, though? Conservative states lack large homeless populations. Why is that? Well, they're just not as generous, or perhaps not as empathetic. But it is true that a lot of red states send their homeless people to blue states on buses. Get them out of here. Go out west. Do your thing out there. Heroin, booze, meth, even weed. For a lot of these people, it's a lost cause. And the drugs are getting worse. There's a new form of meth coming out of Mexico that basically erases your soul from your brain. It's tragic. And then fentanyl hooks you one time and you're done. But we want to make it easy to cross our southern borders, right?
And I got out in 2017. And during that time, my mom had passed. And my father and my brother stole a bunch of money from me. They took cars, they took jewelry, they took guns, they took 2 storage bays. I had my mother doing things for me while I was in prison. I'm sending her money from in prison.
I've asked some of these people, why don't you just leave? Go somewhere cheaper. Some of them say, I don't have the money to leave. And I personally doubt a lot of them could hold a job anywhere anyways. But a lot of these people say, this is my home. My family's here. My friends are here. I shouldn't have to leave the place I'm from. I've also asked them about going home to their family. But many of these people have burned bridges. Their family's just sick of them. They could clean up. They'd be welcomed back home. But that's not going to happen for most of these people. This is their life now. Did you ever think you'd end up homeless?
No.
So who's to blame here? Is this about personal failure? If it's personal failure, then it's easy for you and I to dismiss this as a won't happen to me problem. I feel bad for these people, but they did this to themselves. Shame, shame, shame on you. Or is this a failure of government? Is all the money wasted a sign of incompetence? Looking around California, and it seems they don't want to solve this problem. The state has thrown billions at the problem, and it's just getting worse. LA set aside like $1 billion for affordable housing. And 10 years later, only 10% of the goal was met. And in the meantime, the number of people on the streets went up. They think it would take $1.5 billion to build enough shelter beds to clean the streets in San Francisco. They also estimated it would cost $400 million a year to keep those new shelters open. Can you believe that? What kind of payroll do these shelter staffers make? We could go on and on about the money wasted trying to fix this mess. All these nonprofits with their $200,000 a year salaries, they're just pushing peas around the dinner plate. Why would they even want to solve homelessness anyways? Some will say these cities use this whole mess as a money-making opportunity, getting federal money for affordable housing and then not spending all of it. That sucks. Think of all the people in our own country we could help. I'd rather help these people rebuild than help Ukraine rebuild. Just saying, people. You could separate these people into 4 groups. Those who have had misfortune, the addicted, the mentally ill, and the bums. Now, based on what I've seen and who I've talked to, I think we could actually put a dent in homelessness for the misfortunate. The people who lost their jobs or their spouses or who had a medical setback, but they're working to get out of their situation. Or the elderly who just can't keep up with rent anymore on their Social Security bennies. Those people could stand to use some reasonable assistance with affordable housing. I saw something in Seattle that looked like it had potential. They were making these little tiny home communities all over town. The responsible homeless, like the working poor, I think they'd actually respect these homes and keep them nice. Maybe if they owned their little houses, they'd take pride in them. You can build these things for like $30K each and give these people a manageable loan. But can you build enough of these? They're also experimenting with building what they call these Lego modular homes. They can build a 100-unit housing structure in weeks for like $38 million. But these are in the hundreds of thousands each to construct. And then there's always the question of where are you going to put these communities? All the old rich white people don't want them near their houses for obvious reasons. Some large cities have temporary solutions, hotel rooms and subsidized apartments, but that's kind of a band-aid solution. And then we have a moral question. If we built a home for everybody who wanted one, then where's the motivation to get ahead in life? And is that fair to give everybody a house who wants one? Now we know that COVID caused a lot of people to lose their homes, but COVID might actually provide an unexpected solution. A lot of companies are now letting their people work from home now forever, and there's a ton of unused office space in our downtowns now. I think they need to turn all those old office buildings into condos or housing units. That would at least help out the actual working crowd, give them somewhere to live while they work on getting their lives in order. Now, when it comes to the mentally ill, they just need to set up a triage in these urban areas, immediate medical attention, on-site counseling, and then maybe reopen all the mental hospitals that Reagan shut down. I think some of the mentally ill could be reintroduced back out into the real world again, but those who have ruined their brains with drugs are probably beyond helping. As far as the drunks, the druggies, and the bums, they just want to live like this. They don't want to follow the rules. This is a lifestyle for them, provided by the liberal governments in California. But I think a lot of the addicts would benefit from treatment. If they got some reliable help, some of them would turn their lives around, right? Some could probably work themselves back into society again, maybe through some sort of civilian conservation corps program like what FDR did to get us out of the Great Depression. I guess I could see some addicts responding if they had something meaningful to do, like picking up trash or scrubbing their own shit off the sidewalks. Unless you're totally batshit crazy, everyone's capable of doing something useful. But again, most of these people don't want help. They offer it to them all the time, and they always turn them down. It seems like California leaders have realized money's not the problem. It's policy. Thank God. And believe it or not, California's finally changing its ways. Some of the cities out here are letting people add on apartments and units to their land, so some of the working poor can rent a room out. That'll help a little bit. But again, that's the solution for the working poor, not the druggy drunks. Biden's American Rescue Plan provided billions to cities to encourage affordable housing development. And California's finally making it easier to build affordable housing by reducing all their red tape and regulations. The biggest challenge now is finding neighborhoods that aren't going to bitch and moan about low-income houses nearby. And of course, they're never going to build units for everyone. It's just not possible. I don't know, what if we thought outside the box completely? I was just in California City. It's a desert town about an hour from LA, way out in the middle of nowhere. There's all this land out there and roads in place, and hardly anyone lives there. The state could buy up all the land and then let everybody camp out there and do their thing far away from the rest of us. I'm sure California City wouldn't want that, though. Talk about a real free-for-all potential disaster. We can stop giving people free drugs. We could treat their mental illness. We can make housing more affordable, and we can make it less easy for people to drop out of society and ruin downtowns. We have the brains and money to make this all go away. But we got to do something, because right now, homelessness is ruining our biggest cities. All over our downtowns, people are just waiting to die. The walking dead of America is living in cars, on sidewalks, on our beaches, and in our sewers. Anybody out there have any big ideas? Because everyone that's supposed to be fixing this ain't doing shit.
Quit calling them homeless people. They're bums.
Well, that's not very PC of you, Karen. You could call them houseless or non-domiciled.
That. If you beg and smoke dope and shit your pants, that makes you a bum. My 4-year-old can conduct himself better than these losers.
Homelessness and poverty should not be politicized, but they are. Everything's political these days. We've had a rough go at it with our economy lately. How bad are things going to get if the economy gets worse? How would things look like if we further went down the socialism pathway? Are we creating a chronic dependence on government? Do these people even want a normal life anymore? These are all good questions we don't know the answers to. There's a lot of us who would say, look, live your lives the way you want. If you want to do this, fine, just do this away from everyone else. We're sick of it. It's ugly, it's gross, it's uncomfortable, and it's dangerous. But our cities are being held hostage by a population that refuses to follow our laws and morals. They say as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. If that's the case, we're in deep shit. The 4th richest economy on Earth looks like the 3rd world. I think the rest of the world's looking at us like we're all a bunch of boneheads. Okay, Annabelle, thanks for joining me to talk to me about homelessness in Houston. I was just in California, and it's a really bad situation there with homelessness. I honestly don't know what they're going to do. But I hear that Houston has made huge progress in getting a lot of people off the streets.
Yes, that is correct. We have, since 2011, we've decreased homelessness by 63%, and we've placed almost 26,000 people into permanent housing with supportive services. And we have about an 85% success rate in the programs that, in those programs.
So give people an idea, how many homeless people at last count, when it was at the highest, and when was that?
Yeah, so in 2011, we had the 6th highest homeless population in the nation. It was close to 9,000 individuals at that time. And last year's count in 2022, we are at about 3,200 individuals. It's about almost evenly split as far as people that are in shelter and people that are on the streets. So we had about 1,500 people on the streets experiencing what we call unsheltered homelessness. But yeah, back in 2011, we were not doing a great job. And so we were declared a priority community for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That meant that we weren't doing things, we weren't doing a great job. And so it meant that we were assigned technical assistance to kind of get our act together. And so that resulted in some technical TA providers coming into town and facilitating a large charrette with all of our partners. And at that time, it was about a shared vision of what needed to happen. A shared vision of permanent housing with supportive services as the answer to end homelessness, using the housing first model, and then prioritizing the most vulnerable individuals first. And during that time, we became better aligned. We collaborated better. We found and determined who was doing a great job and supported those organizations to continue doing that great work, and then shifted things that maybe some organizations weren't doing a great job to others that were. And it's really about, even though Houston is the 4th largest city in the U.S., we're very much a small community in a sense, because we're very collaborative. We help one another. It's all about helping thy neighbor, and homelessness, is just a priority. It's also, we did have a lot of political will, I will say, that helped a lot. The mayor at the time, Anise Parker, she made homelessness a priority. And then Sylvester Turner, who's in office now and came after, continued that work. And so, having that political will and backing behind us, and then, sharing the success and bringing everyone to the table and becoming more transparent and collaborative is, I would say, is the key to our success.
Okay, so in 10 years, it dropped by 2/3.
Correct.
Were you around when it first, in 2011?
Yeah, so I was at another nonprofit at the time. I started at the coalition in 2013, but I was, at a different nonprofit that was part of the collaborative in 2011. So I actually participated in the charrette as a service provider at the time. So it was really great to see the differences between, going from what it was. Everyone was kind of very siloed and not talking to one another, compared to what it is now, where we all kind of, we know what everyone's doing. The coalition became the lead organization for the continuum of care, and it's very transparent, it's very collaborative, and we just love all of our partners, and they're doing a great job.
So what exactly, if you were going to highlight a couple of high-level things that Houston did back in 2011 to now, what would be a couple of just bullet points on things that you guys were able to do to get a lot of people off the streets?
Yeah, so I would say we created a 5-year strategic plan that determined that we needed approximately 2,500 units of permanent supportive housing in order to house people that were the most vulnerable. So at the time, we had approximately 1,000 individuals on our wait list that were experiencing chronic homelessness. Those are individuals that have been homeless for a long, long time and have some kind of a disabling condition that prevents them from working and living independently. We also had a very large number of homeless veterans. And so the first target, I would say, is it's really great to have a goal. Everyone is aligned towards a common goal. And so one of the first things that we decided is that we wanted to end veteran homelessness by 2015. And so with that is we went to both public housing authorities, and both of them implemented what we call a homeless preference. And that means that they allocated an X number of housing choice vouchers every year from their general pool towards homeless programs. We also better strategically use all of the VASH. Those are the vouchers that are specifically for veterans. And then we position the supportive services for veteran family providers to provide the supportive services for veterans that might be newly homeless or were about to become homeless, and also that needed like a deposit and stuff like that to move into their home. And so we started this boot camp process where we would just go out and get all of the veterans that we saw in the streets and bring them into one central location. And then we would, get everything that those veterans needed, process their paperwork, and just do that cycle over and over, several times until we got to the point where we actually ended veteran homelessness in June of 2015. So that was a big deal. And we got a lot of public recognition. And the more recognition and the more, great things that you do, the more people and providers want to be a part of it. And so from that, we shifted that entire focus of how we did it for veterans to people experiencing chronic homelessness. So we're actually very close to ending chronic homelessness. I would say we probably have about 200 to 500. It varies every day, but that's significant. So the way that it was done before was pretty much about cherry picking, and it was really about people that individuals or clients that knew how to work the system that would get the assistance that they needed. And so that left a lot of very vulnerable individuals on the streets. And the way that with coordinated entry that it leveled the playing field. Everyone has the same assessment process. They only have to tell their story one time. It lives within our homeless management information system. And then from there, we created almost 3,000 slots of permanent supportive housing, which really, just made significant strides in decreasing the number of individuals experiencing homelessness. I will say one of the things that we do here is we put the bulk of our resources into permanent solutions. We don't have a lot of shelter. We don't put a lot of funding into shelter. The shelters that we do have are either privately funded or get very little government assistance. The bulk of the resources we put into permanent housing, because we know that permanent housing with supportive services is really the only way to end homelessness.
Mm-hmm. So how many units did you have to, how many affordable units did Houston build in the last 11 years?
So we haven't really built that many. I mean, we did create several new properties. I will say, I can get the numbers for you, but I don't have it off the top of my head. So there was some new construction, but there's also was some rehab that happened. But I will say that Houston has always traditionally been a city where the cost of living is lower compared to some of the other larger cities. And so we have a very large amount of apartment complexes that are affordable. And so we are able to actually take people with a voucher in hand and put them into a scattered site unit, which is, just a regular apartment like everyone else, can access. And those apartments meet the HUD fair market rent. We're, it's starting to tighten up a little bit, I will say, over the last few years, because just like with everyone else, but we still have quite a few apartment complexes that meet that HUD fair market rent and that we can tap into to house individuals.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to decipher what you guys did, because I don't work with the homeless and all the terms and the phrases, you just went out case by case, one by one, found out an individual's need and history, and then placed them pretty much in a permanent affordable housing solution that the city already had on hand. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't California do that too? Is it because there's too many people? Is it the cost of living?
Cost of living, and it's the cost of living and the housing cost. So an apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in California is likely 5 times higher than it is in Houston. You can still find a 1-bedroom apartment here in Houston for $800, $900, $1,000. In California, I've heard that that's 3 times, 4 times as much. And so you can imagine, the someone experiencing homelessness, that if they're living on Social Security, especially, Social Security costs are, they don't vary very much between different states. And so how can someone who's, living paycheck to paycheck or very, very low income afford something like that? On top of that, there's just not enough. From what I'm hearing in California, there's just not enough of those units to go around. So even if there is the subsidy to pay for an apartment for $3,000 a month, there's just not enough of those apartments to go around for not just people that are not homeless, but people that are experiencing homelessness. So of course, I don't live in California. This is just what I hear and read. But I think that that's probably it. I mean, we, traditionally, a lot of these cities have not built affordable housing over the years, and we are going to get into another crunch. And so we really need to build affordable housing. Houston, another thing that I've heard about LA in specific is that there's a lot of zoning and there's a lot of pushback and not in my backyard. So even though, yes, people want a solution to homelessness, when it comes down to actually building a place somewhere, no one wants it. And then there's so many loopholes that people have to jump through, the builders for, energy efficiency and all the other different things that kind of, backlogs the process.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Environmental, this, that. Nobody wants, a lot of people in Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, they want to help the homeless. They feel bad, but not in my backyard. Do it over there. No, I don't want that over here. So now that you have made a lot of progress in Houston and you see what's going on, California's way worse. What do you think, if anything, what would you do if you had the keys out in California? Is there anything they can do?
I really don't know, to be honest. We've actually talked about this internally with my coworkers. We talk about it actually quite a bit about, what would we do if we had to, move to California and try to, the strategies that we've done here can be replicated. I'm sorry, not everybody may agree, but it can. I will say that, Houston doesn't have zoning, but we still have not in my backyard. Even though we don't have zoning, there's still places that, took a long time to build an apartment complex because people just didn't want it there. And it's just, I think the policies and first of all, wages have to keep up with the cost of living, and that's not happening right now. Definitely the zoning and the building codes and all of that stuff in California, there needs to be some kind of policy change around that. From what I understand, there's funding available to build and to address homelessness. It's just getting through all that political, there has to be political will, there has to be, cutting through all of the bureaucracy before you can even kind of dig into that. So that's going to take a while.
Yeah, they get billions in funding, and they'll get $10 billion to do something, and then 10 years later they've spent like 10% of it or done 10% of what they were
if we had
supposed to
$10 billion here, I would feel very confident in saying that there would be no homeless people on the streets if we had $10 billion for homelessness.
I don't understand, and that brings so you guys have done a lot of good things. A lot of the nonprofits in California take a beating from the press or from the public because they're like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you spending all this money on? Do you have a thought on, are some nonprofits just not as effective as others? Is it just?
I really couldn't say, to be honest. And, I don't want to speak negatively about my colleagues in California. I think they're doing a great job. I think they're doing the best job that they can in the environment in which they're located. And that's the same for every single nonprofit working with homelessness across the country. I think the intent is there. I mean, we don't go into this work because we're going to make a lot of money, right? We want to do this because we think we're going to make a difference. And I think that, we're fortunate in Houston because we've had a lot of circumstances in which I guess the wind has been in our favor, but I will say that, those nonprofits, they're trying from what I can see and hear. But it's just really about, government and politics and, all of the different movers and shakers in the city that need to kind of change the way that they think.
All right. Well, I've learned a lot. You're more optimistic than I am, but you've had success. And I grew up in California, and I've driven through that state so many times, and I have been in some really nasty places. It makes you just lose faith in humanity.
Yeah. I was actually there. I was asked to go to USC to speak about homelessness and what we did with veteran homelessness, because it was a veteran summit. And, there were people there from the county and the city. There were people there from the VA. There were people there. And, everyone in that room wanted to do better. There were veterans in that room. They were trying so hard. But the more that I got to understand what they have to deal with in their jobs, as far as like at that time is when there was issues happening in the city with the elected officials, and, no one has it's like everybody wants to be in control. And so it's just fighting within themselves, fighting from the city and the county. Here in Houston, the county and the city were aligned for the most part. And there's political shifts. Sometimes there's more commissioners that are Republicans, sometimes there's less. But at the end of the day, we're able to, advocate and explain about the work that we're doing to where even the far right, folks, vote in our favor. So, it was a lot to, I just felt so bad for them. They have the resources, they have the vouchers, they have what they need to end veteran homelessness, but they can't cut through all the red tape.
This politics, they step on their own feet. Yep.
It's all politics. Yeah.
Is Houston mostly conservative city?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that, there is a stereotype around the fact that people that are experiencing homelessness don't want to be housed, don't want to get out of that situation. And that's not true. I haven't had I've been doing this for 23 years now. I haven't had a single person ever tell me, I chose to do this. I want to be in this situation. There are people that have some severe mental illnesses to where they can't even consent, but that number is finite. I mean, it's tiny, 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 tiny. And those individuals, yes, they already had the mental illness to begin with, and something just kind of made it worse. But that's not the majority of people experiencing homelessness. It's just a regular person like you and I. There's a lot of people that live paycheck to paycheck, and you never know what might happen to, cause them to become homeless.
Well, Anna Rausch, I hope that other cities and states can emulate your success down there in Houston. You're a role model. It's not very often you hear about success stories with the homeless problem in this country. And, hopefully other cities and communities can learn from what you guys have done and can put a dent in this huge problem.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. And I can also help you find your new house, too. Email me and I'll work with you on not just helping you figure out where to move, but I can help you find your perfect home, too. That's right. I know awesome, reliable agents all over the country, and I'd love to connect you to somebody who can help you search for that perfect home. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.